All right.
Yeah.
We'll cut all that part out of the show. We've been live the whole time because I was testing the audio thing, and then I forgot to put us back on a starting scene screen. So we'll edit that bit out. Hello,
That's
Eric.
fine. Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Dungeon Discussions and Dragons.
Discussion Dragons.
I'll get that name right eventually.
Eventually.
Episode 2. I'm excited.
Me too.
This is fun. We'll get to the discussion in a second, but first, what is your mug situation for your coffee this
time? It is the coffee. It's a play on tarot.
The tarot kind. That's good. That's very good. I've brought to the table. I'm keeping in my theme of exclusively Christmas mugs on this cast.
Yes.
And so we're still rocking the instant Keurig cup brew.
Same.
And because it's fast and it's efficient.
Yeah.
Keurig hit us up for a sponsorship.
we are open to donations.
Yeah, hit us up. I imagine you and I could cut a very good Keurig ad.
Oh, we absolutely could. Yeah. It would be all D&D themed with just the dungeon master knocking back like cups of coffee.
Yeah, totally.
Like, all right, guys, now you're fighting an ogre. Like,
now you're fighting you have to go harvest the sacred coffee beans to get the ultimate elixir of you'll never have to sleep again.
Done and done. I'm gonna write that down.
All right.
I'm gonna make coffee inspired magic items or something.
If we ever got a sponsorship for this podcast, you better believe that we would build an entire game as an advertisement for them.
You will be fighting a caffeine dragon by the end of it. Like, no mistake.
Which and you'll appreciate this. Which brings us to today's topic. Professional transitions coming in hot. We're going to talk about world building. And by that I mean you're probably going to talk a lot about world building. I'm going to ask you questions because I've got my own thoughts about world building and what it is and how to do it. But I haven't been in the game as long as you've been in the game.
And that's making it sound like I've been in the game some considerable amount of time.
You've been in the game a considerably longer amount of time than I have.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I've been doing this for, I think this is like my 3rd year. And you've been doing it since college, right? Or like
I've been playing D&D since like late middle school.
Right. And we're the same age, which therefore makes my statement of you being in the game considerably longer a true statement.
That is, yes, when comparative to our grouping, yes. Yeah. I've been in it a considerable long time.
Yeah.
When compared to some other people, I'm like
right.
They're like, "Aw."
Yeah, but those people can't we couldn't get them for the podcast because they're too busy up on their wizards' towers.
Up in their wizards' fortress.
Yeah, plotting their acquiring the secrets of arcane omnipotence or something like that.
Yeah, delving through like old dragon magazines to find obscure lore that they can bring up in their campaign.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Like how to prevent astral travel through stone by treating the stone with Gorgon blood.
Yeah, but those people have gotten to where they are because they have been for years building their worlds.
Exactly.
And so let's talk about
how to get to where they are.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you what do you consider why is world building?
Beautiful.
I'm so eloquent. I haven't drank this coffee yet. That's why.
Do you want me to answer how is world building first, or why is world building first?
I'll leave that to your professional discretion while I drink this coffee. And maybe I'll be coherent by halfway through this podcast.
That's fair. We'll start with the why, because I feel like you need to have a why before you can start doing anything.
Yeah, let's do that. And then I have an example for you from a game that I played earlier in the week, and I want you to tell me is it world building or is it just something else.
It'll be an entire section. World building or no?
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be our brand new segment on the show.
I mean, I recommend everybody world build, really. We've talked about this in the past. A lot of my campaigns are almost 100% homebrew. Mm-hmm. And even that I'll touch on, because that makes it sound like I do a lot of work, and I really don't.
That's another episode about how much or how little work a DM does.
Yeah. And like, even between the two of us, I do a lot of DM prep.
Right.
But even that's not necessarily like a lot of work. Like the first thing so that's kind of, I very much agree with doing homebrew. I think it's a great way to flex creative muscles. I think it helps anybody who is a GM or running any kind of a game. When you've built something yourself to put into the game, I think it just ties you into it a little bit better, and it makes you, it gives you a little bit more commitment into the game. Not that as the GM you weren't committed already, but definitely creating something yourself adds another layer to that. Sure. And it doesn't have to be a completely homebrewed game. You could create a homebrew item to include into your, bought off the shelf or purchase modules, what have you. Mm-hmm. And it gives you the same effect. And it also creates a new surprise to that campaign if somebody already played it before.
Right. Yeah, totally. And it doesn't even have to be like homebrewed items or monsters or anything like that. So this is my question: is this world building? So like the small narrative details that you put into like different things and like characters and stuff like that. So for instance, we're playing Dragon Heist on the channel right now, which is a canned adventure. It's like a pre-made thing. And I've never run a canned adventure before, but like I put like a fair amount of time into and like effort into making all of the NPCs like feel unique and real. And so like we had this incredible combat that I'm gonna like put up as a highlight later. It was just this combat with these two thugs, but like I like started talking as the thugs, and like they were just like, they like had their maces and they were like, oh yeah, we're like real good at mace and stuff, and then like they were fighting the party. And like the cleric in our party has a mace. It's like he's like, I come up and I hit them with my mace, and like one of them's like, oh, that was a real good mace technique you got there. And like,
good mason.
Yeah, we like improv the whole conversation, and afterwards my players were saying that was the most fun combat that they've played since we started. So like, would you consider those like small little narrative beats like that like a part of the like broad definition of like world building, because you're making the world feel more like real? And
100% yes. Anything that helps to incorporate more of a realism and more of an immersive atmosphere into the world, I think is part of world building. Mm-hmm. So if you have a purchased a module, a campaign that you bought as a book and you're running, absolutely. If you add a personality to an NPC that might not have one listed, that's world building in and of itself. Oh, yeah. I break it down right down to the players are world building by just creating characters to add into the world.
Yeah. They're throwing their backstory at the world, and yeah, like backstories spawn NPCs, which spawn plot, which spawn changes in the world, which in and of itself is helping to construct and build your world. So everything you do is kind of falls under, or not everything you do, but any kind of an update to a set item in the world falls under that category of world building, in my mind at least. And that just helps to kind of simplify what world building is, because it can be such a... Yeah, you can go as big or as little as you want with it, and like
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what would you built worlds? You have an entire world that you built for your West Marches game.
I do. Um,
What would you say if I were building a new world? Spoiler alert, I am.
right.
What would you say were like the first couple of like what's your first tip? What's the first thing you would focus on if you're just starting world building?
um, so I think that the way that I did it was I started small. I started real small. So like I um I started it because some of my friends who had never played D&D before were interested in playing D&D, and so I was going to run a game for them, and I was like, okay, I don't necessarily have an in-depth knowledge of like Faerun or Forgotten Realms lore enough that I could like think of like a good way to just like run a Forgotten Realms game. So I was like, all right. So I made an adventurers guild called the Darrington Domicile for Daring Do-Gooders. And I like to name drop that because I spent a long time being able to say that without flinching.
Can you say it one more time?
The Darrington Domicile for Daring Do-Gooders.
That's incredible. That's fantastic. Please continue. That's so good though.
I made two NPCs for that whole organization. I made the receptionist, who was a little gnome named Twig, who like his whole job was he was the one who he wasn't a gnome, he was a halfling. And he was the one who like coordinated. He was the dungeon finder of the game. He would be like, all right, we've got this adventure, this mission, and we've got these players, and so lump them together. And he was literally just an LFG system.
That's so good.
And then I had the guild master, who was this like badass half orc female, because that was fun. And then I named the town. The town's name was Wildstone. I guess it still is. And that's what I had. And I was like, okay, they're going to go on an adventure to the forest to the north, which I named the Whispering Wood because like generic spooky forest name.
Yeah,
and that was that. And then we made the characters and we ran the one shot and like they did the thing. And then I had this stuff. And then when I started to run more games, mostly on like Twitch and stuff, I just kept using the Darrington Domicile for Daring Do-Gooders as kind of my baseline. And from there, I like came up with other adventures that people would do and other locations for people to visit. I would like I would ask people to make characters and they would write these like elaborate backstories because I had some of those players, and I was like, all right, cool, so like that's a part of the world now. And like, you know, when I eventually sat down and just made a map for this area, I just went through all of the character sheets that I had, and I had like 20 character sheets because I had a bunch of people that had played in it, and any places that they mentioned I put on the map, and that was the world.
Exactly. I was just going to say character backstory is a big tip for me when it comes to world building. I'll start, if I'm building a whole campaign, I'll start with like one town, and then any character who's like, oh, I came from a small town, whatever, and that I'm like, great, another town exists, and it's right here, and here's the name.
What's the name of it? Yeah, like
exactly.
And I ask them for names all the time. Yeah, totally. And I still to this day of my West Marches world, which is now kind of like built out into a whole like little subsection of an area. Like if anyone asked me, like if any of my players asked me, what's the name of the continent that we're on right now that we've lived on and grown up on and lived our whole lives, I don't know. I never named it. I would if anyone asked me that like in the middle of a game, I'd say, I don't know, what is it? Like you tell me. You've lived here your whole life. Like what do you call it? And that would be the name.
Right. That makes sense. I understand that. My problem is that the first thing I try to do is create the entire world. So and then I'm looking at like this blank slate of land and oceans, and I'm just like so
right.
Well, the first time I did it, that's what I did, and it slowed me down a lot.
Right.
So I wish somebody had given me the tip of starting small, start with like a town first, and go from there.
I also like would recommend never making a map.
never making a map?
Not for a very long time, at least. I like.
Oh,
I wish that I hadn't made a map of my West Marches game, like, because then everything is like laid out in concrete, and
right.
as soon as things are laid out in concrete, like you like are obsessing over details that you don't have to obsess over. Whereas like
Yeah.
if everything is just kind of nebulous, you can say like, okay, like you guys are gonna travel to the White Hold up north, and the dwarves have hired you to help them with this conflict or something like that. And I can just say it's gonna take you like 3 weeks of travel time to get there. Whereas like since I have a map, I don't it'll probably take much longer because like, you know, it's like a hex map and every hex is a day and it's like probably a lot more. But like I don't have that flexibility to just be like, yeah, it's like this, it's from here to there and like that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally understand that. I actually kind of agree with you on. I half agree, half disagree with you on that.
Mm.
Um, because yes, once you've added it to a map, if you're keeping a physical map in front of you, it is then set in stone for the most part. Like, and you that can get you caught up very often.
Yeah.
The group that I run really, really wanted a map because they were traveling a lot. So
Mm.
I designed one on grid paper so that each like little square would be a day's worth of travel or whatever,
Yeah.
and we plotted out where the towns were. But I let everybody know up front, like, one, I'm not a like cartographer. Like I don't,
Yeah,
I don't make maps. I don't know
Right.
how to do it. I can't gauge like proper distance. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what biomes should be near what other biomes. Like I'm not.
I mean,
It's not what I
your,
do.
it's like a fucking fantasy game that we're playing
Right,
in our heads.
right.
So
I'm like,
like, so
You shot
as
lightning from your finger. Like
yeah,
let's all
as a,
let's
as
all
a, ma-
understand.
as a matter of fact, you do know the exact biomes and what go together because it's your world, and if that's what you want it to be, then that's what it
Yeah.
is.
I'm like, here's the thing. I'll put it all down on paper. It's not going to be realistic. It's not going to feel very real. And also, it could change. Like, I'll give you the map if you need it.
We're shooting lightning from our fingers, like you
Right.
said. So
And
like...
that's and it took me a long time to understand that because when I first started playing, I was one of those like, and I still am an optimizer, min maxer, and
yeah.
munchkin, where I build as powerful as I can. So for a long time, it was like, I need this to be real. Like there has to be consistency. There cannot be any breaks in like, how things are laid out.
Like the rules have to be the rules so that we can
right, exactly.
optimize the rules. Yeah.
Exactly. And I've slowly evolved. Well, not saying evolved as a gamer infers that mindset is a lesser mindset, and it's not. You can choose to play the game in whatever way that you want. I've since changed, I'll say, my mindset from more of a min-max or optimizer, like try to build as powerful a character as possible, into just like, I sit down to have a good time. Like,
right.
so.
But you can sit down to have a good time and also still be min-maxing and like playing optimally. Like that's the thing that's fun to me. Like
Yes,
the
100%.
The fun thing about like playing my cleric in our Curse of Strahd game that will be live today at 2 p.m. Eastern is like it like I sit down and I play with my friends and I have a good time and I do a voice and we like go through and we're doing all this stuff. Yeah. But like the fun bits for me is like optimizing my action economy and like thinking about like, okay, like this turn, this is my like spiritual weapon turn, and then I don't need to worry about spiritual weapon anymore because it's not concentration for some reason, and like I can like optimize like all of these other things that I'm doing and that sort of stuff. Like that's fun for me, but and like you can have things be unrealistic but still have the rules be consistent, I guess.
Exactly.
Is how we got. That's where I was going with
that's
this.
Where that's where no, and that's where that was going. And ultimately, you kind of almost have to, because as far as like realism goes, as we've just discussed, you're shooting a lightning bolt from your fingertips. Like we're not. This isn't Companies and Dunkin' Donuts we're playing here. It's Dungeons and Dragons.
Companies and Dunkin' Donuts.
Or whatever game you're playing.
We should design that tabletop game. Companies and Dunkin' Donuts.
Companies and coffee.
Yeah. Yep. Throw that one on the list.
Companies and coffee. That'll be Keurig. Keurig, if you
Keurig.
you're listening, we will make a game setting called Companies and Coffee. That is the offer on the table right now.
Yeah, we will design you a whole tabletop game.
Companies and Coffee. But yeah, as far as like realism goes, I think one thing that I get caught up in, and this might just be a me thing, so it might not be advice that anyone else could use, is don't forget that the world is a fantasy world. The world that I'm trying to build for my group now is this it's got a lot of different thematic ideas that I'm solidifying into kind of almost a post-apocalyptic, think like Faerun, but instead of discovering technology and moving up through it like that, it's more like Eberron, but modern. So it's going to be a D20 modern game, but as though Eberron were today's day and age. So there's magical technology and things like that. I'm basically just taking modern day tech and calling electricity magic, and like everything else is just explained through magic. So like there's like cell phone like objects that are all powered by ion stones, and like I don't have to explain very much because I can just say magic and like call it a day.
I mean, it sounds an awful lot like Duskwell.
My second tip for world building is steal from everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plagiarize till the end of the day.
Right. Like, and that's the thing is like, if you see something that you think is cool,
say something.
Say something, and that something is, hey, that's really cool. I'm gonna take it and put it in my game.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if you're not streaming it, like, because so like. I'm a bit wary about like taking things like verbatim and putting them into my games because I stream stuff, and I don't want to be like, oh well, I took this aspect of like Matt Koval's like D&D campaign and like put it in my game because I think it's like a really cool thing, and like I just copied verbatim his rules here, and then like, oh, like this like school of magic that Matt Mercer is designing looks really cool, I'm gonna put that in my game, you know, like that sort of thing. But if I'm running a game and it's not streamed and like no one's watching it, and I'm not like kind of designing the game to be watched or like consumed in like an audio or video form or whatever, like you better believe I'm gonna steal all of Matt Koval's like mercenary rules for his campaign and like Matt Mercer's cool school of magic that's like all fucking weird gravity magic. Like hell yeah, I'm gonna steal all that stuff and put it in my game. That's dope.
Looks so good. Like... And that's the thing. Yeah, and even with you streaming, and this is completely my opinion, I feel like Matt Koval and Matt Mercer would be like, nah, take it, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. But oh yeah, sure. It's
outside of streaming, even more so. Feel free to anything. Yeah. Absolutely anything.
If anyone watches anything, any of the games that we run on this channel, and you think it's cool, if you think that Eric's character 13 in our Blades in the Dark campaign that we play on Monday nights at 8 p.m. EST is a cool character, and you say, boy, I wish that I could have him as an NPC in my game, like
take him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go for it. Put a weird
ghost. He is not my property, he is our property.
Yeah, put a weird ghosty mage boy in your games. Like,
I feel like you can only improve a game by having a weird ghosty mage boy.
I feel the same way. Since literally 100% of the Blades in the Dark games that I've ever run have had exactly one weird ghost boy, and I feel like they've improved tremendously because of that. So always,
yeah. I always love having a game where all of the players work perfectly together. No, like nobody's. I don't want to say like an odd character, but like everybody's kind of fitting whatever role they're supposed to. So you have a druid who's like nature based, and they're very much a druid, and you've got the fighter and the paladin and everything like that. Very much have fun with those campaigns. Equally fun are the campaigns where like of the 5 characters, 4 of them are like that. You know, you've got your ranger and your fighter and whatever, and then you also have like the wizard who decided their intelligence was their dump stat, and they maxed out their strength and con, and they just like smack things with branches, but they like scream spell words, so they're like fireball, and you're like sure, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done a bit of that in our Blades campaign where like in like the downtime episodes, we've done entire episodes where like y'all aren't even in the same room before.
Yeah.
And we just and that's a thing, that's like an aspect of running a game that I feel I've gotten pretty good at, is like being able to like jump between perspectives of different characters and giving everyone enough like screen time that
Right, the spotlight.
that like that it doesn't, like the other players like don't feel bored or whatever.
Right.
And
we could do an entire episode on that. I'm gonna write that down, like the screen time spotlight idea.
yeah, that's a thing I could talk a lot about actually.
Oh yeah, screen time spotlight idea. Just that idea of how to balance
when players aren't together.
Character focus, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when they are together, like
Yeah.
turns are that, right?
That could be an entire episode, is like running like a dungeon crawl out of turn order because you're not in combat, but like having to focus on each person because everybody should be doing something. But
Right.
ideally,
Yeah,
ideally doing something.
Yeah. Yep.
I always say things like that because I'm like, I've played in campaigns where people are like, no, my character's not designed to do anything in a dungeon. And that's like, that's fine. You're like the researcher in between, and that's perfectly fine.
Right. Yeah. And that's I've seen the opposite problem where like there's like a very social based campaign and someone's like the fighter. It's like, all right, cool. Like this is happening in a show, a campaign that I'm watching right now where like the fighter who is like, this is like an 11th level or 12th level game, and they're like this fighter with like 20 strength, but like, you know, not a lot of charisma or whatever, and he's just in this like situation where he's like trying to befriend this NPC, and it's like they're like an entire episode, and all that the fighter has done is try to make like persuasion checks and insight checks and stuff like that, and like it's still like fascinating and like cool and fun to watch, but like, yeah, you just feel bad when you're trying to,
because
like,
it's not, yeah, especially when the skill focuses are
right.
so concentrated on something that the character was not built to.
Yeah.
Those situations can be really definitely frustrating for the player, but still very enjoyable.
Yeah,
because if you're imagining it, you're seeing it as like this big fighter is like, be my friend, please.
Yeah, like trying to understand like very nuanced emotions and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I love it. We were talking about world building, and then we kind of went off on a tangent.
We were originally.
Yeah,
I think originally we were talking about world building.
Yeah. But
so
tangents and discussions and dragons.
It gets us additional episodes. I write them down. I have a couple.
This has got to be this is a segment on the show. That's what I've decided. This is a segment called we come up with new episode ideas.
New episodes right now.
Yeah, this is a segment called Tangents and Dragons. We've done it. We figured it out. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna write something down.
What? You're taking notes? I take notes everywhere. It's so bad.
Yeah.
But good. Especially since now it's my turn to do a professional transition right into the third point that I had for world building.
Ship it. Let's hear it.
Which is maintain all ideas. Maintain all of them. This might just be a me thing, but I showed you this a little bit before. The campaign that I'm currently working on for my group, this is a notebook that I filled almost all the way through with papers, and there's like post-it notes and stuff. Yep. And it's just literally any idea that I had for the campaign, I wrote down. Yeah. Just to have them, just to physically have all of those ideas, because at any point I can circle back and rework any idea or just get rid of it.
And it could be a thing, yeah.
Exactly, especially since I had several ideas for the like beginning of the campaign, for like different things that could occur, that I realized I had too much going on early. So I moved one of them to the middle, moved one of them to the end, and then you just reskin them for whatever situation is happening there. At the beginning, if it's like a bandit attacks you or whatever, you shift it to the end and it's a beholder who attacks you or whatever.
Right. Casual beholder.
Just casual beholder.
Highway robbing beholder. There's an idea for you. You can have
I'm
that.
it's
You can
it's
have that one
already
for
written
free.
down.
Yeah.
Highway robber, beholder.
Like the fucking beholder is like a bandit leader. That's so good.
Oh, there's somebody in our chat. Hello.
There is. Hello. Welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was my other suggestion. My other suggestion was write down every single idea. I can't tell you how many times I've one, it's because you want to have a collection of all of your prior ideas in case they're good,
Right.
and you have to circle back to them. But then two, write down every idea that you have in case you forget that idea. Because I have oftentimes thought to myself, oh my God, this is a brilliant idea for the campaign. And then it never happened because I forgot it.
Yeah. I mean, the like main through line of our Blades in the Dark game right now, like the plot and like kind of like the narrative beats that you guys have like kind of gone through so far, and like we'll go through for another like session or two before I let you loose and turn it into just a sandbox game. Like it was literal actual shower thought. Like thought about it in the shower and went like, all right, I got it. I took all the notes down and here we are.
So many of my good ideas are shower thoughts that I'm then like, oh, I have to remember this.
Right. Yeah.
The one place I don't have my notebook is usually the
waterproof little.
Just like
yeah, like asking Siri to write down some take some notes for you.
Record these notes.
Yeah.
Oh,
totally.
Brilliant! But those are my three. I only have three. I keep everything as simple or as minimal as possible. My big three were start small, steal from literally anything and everything.
Right.
Which comes to I already had it, but I just got it or already had seen it and read it, but I just purchased the Ravnica source book for
yeah.
5th edition. Yeah, I've already read it. I understand most of it. But with the post-apocalyptic world theme that I'm going for, it felt like the Ravnica campaign setting I could use as kind of a base for what the world was, and then kind of like collapse it from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So I'm excited to start that. And then we still want to do like a possibly off week actual world building?
Yeah, well, so that's the thing that I think we should do, for sure, because you're building a world right now, as you've advertised a few times. I have so next Sunday, I'm running a game for some friends, like an IRL game, like a one shot. So I think that we should get together sometime next week and build a world, and then I'll run my one shot in that world. Beautiful. And then we can talk about it.
I love it. Yeah. Build a world.
So we'll figure that out, and like probably we'll figure out the scheduling stuff and like tweet about it.
Yeah. Perfect.
So yeah, like follow me on Twitter, or on the stream if you want to like know more about that. Cool. What else can we talk about? But yeah,
I was gonna say those are the items I had for world building. That's specifically for kind of starting from scratch. We could go into specifics on like
how do you so this is a thing. How so do you don't run a lot of canned adventures, do you?
No. I've never actually run a canned or purchased campaign. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Right. Many a time have I wished I did.
Well, that's the thing. So like that's a thing that's why I'm doing Dragon Heist, because I had been doing this for like a year and a half at the time, and I was like, I want to try to do this like from a book and see what that is like. And so I was gonna ask you, or I was gonna say we could talk about world building in like established worlds, which like not necessarily with D&D do I have a lot to talk about, but like boy could I talk about the world building of Blades in the Dark.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And it's essentially all the same. Once the world is created, anything that you add into it is your world building on top of that.
yeah, totally.
So I definitely I definitely agree that you can world build inside of pre-established worlds. And the same goes for like campaigns that you might purchase to run. You can continue building on top of those campaigns to the point where you're taking pieces from the campaign and you're pulling pieces out and adding things in. You're customizing that entire campaign. That's world
Mhm.
building right there.
Yeah, totally. Um, and even if you're not customizing things, you can in different ways kind of like build up and like make aspects of the world feel real and believable, and that is also world building. You're
Yes.
helping to sell the fantasy of this pre-made thing, which is like um when we've talked, like you guys have like asked me a question about stuff in our Blades game, and I've like talked about how like there's like pseudo magical electricity because it's fueled by electroplasm
Right.
and Leviathan blood, and like we've talked about like that stuff.
I intend to be a large importer and exporter of Leviathan blood. I just don't intend to ever go out and fight a Leviathan. So I have to figure that out still.
Yeah, there's a homebrewed crew type that exists out in the world where you can be a crew of Leviathan hunters, and
That's awesome.
you like get your own ship, and like that's your like hideout, and you go out and you fight these things, and that's like the game type. It's like
That's
it's metal as fuck, dude.
That is awesome. I would
Yeah,
be 100% down. Let's go kill Leviathan right now.
you can't kill them because
That's right. They never die. You just stab
they're
them.
like immortal elder god demons.
You just like
Um,
stab them enough until you
yeah, you just
milk
collect
them.
enough. Literally, you collect enough of their blood, and then hope that you get away alive. Like
And then just
that's
and then just hope.
yeah, it's a hell of a thing. I've watched exactly like one game run by the man himself, John Harper. Like ran like a one shot of or no, maybe he didn't run it. Maybe he played in it of like a Leviathan hunter like one shot, and it was dope as hell.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Um, but like yeah, even like little world building details, like what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode with like just like making like the random like thugs that your players are fighting talk.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Or things like my, one thing that I very much enjoy doing is if I ever have like an assassin in my group and they have to get past like a guard, as they sneak up to like assassinate the guard or whatever, I'll make sure that the guard pulls out like a picture of his daughter who it's her
Right.
birthday that day. Like it's
Yeah.
always
Oh yeah.
like it's always the guard's daughter's birthday, and I feel like that in and of itself is world building because
Oh
like
yeah, totally.
somehow
Yeah.
all of these guards
Yeah. They have families.
they all
Um
have families and
my
they always get scheduled on their kids' birthdays. Like they
yeah.
can't ever
Right.
request.
Right. Um my favorite like little thing of that to do is oh man, I love this so much. I make myself laugh with this every time I do it. So whenever bards use vicious mockery,
Yes,
I
I make them
always
tell me.
I always do elaborate monster flashbacks. So like they're like I ask them like what, so like Eric, you're vicious mockerying a goblin. Like what do you say to the goblin?
It's usually something like fat ass. Like it's usually something real quick and easy that just
Yeah.
like cuts down to because we're in combat. I don't have time to like
Right.
expel like a. It's usually something like you green fat ass.
Yeah, and so you do that, and then like we zoom in and we get like the flashback sepia tome to like this goblin in like goblin middle school, and he is like being made fun of because he's slightly chunkier than all the goblins. Yeah, yeah, and like that's him taking the damage, and I love doing that kind of stuff where it's like
Yeah.
based on whatever the insult is, like we talk about the monster's backstory. Yeah.
You talk about and the vicious mockery is one of those spells that I think is designed for that fun-loving bard-ish character because you're literally causing damage through insults.
Yeah.
So it's just
Right.
it,
Of course.
it's
Yeah. I love those little narrative based beats are like really cool.
I think
Um,
part of what makes tabletop gaming so much fun is that you add to what the rules say. In like a video game or other forms of tabletop, when you do an attack, it just causes damage and then you move on. What makes tabletop a lot more enjoyable is stuff like that. When
yeah.
you use an ability, you can describe its effect
Hmm.
fully. And that's
Yeah.
what's in.
Yeah, my catchphrase when I am GMing anything, and like you've now been GM'd by me for like however many sessions. It's what does it look like when you do this?
Yeah. What
Like
does it look like?
what does it look like when you do X? What does it look like when you kill this monster? What does it look like when you like do this thing or like what is this crit? Like what does this nat 20 look like? What does this nat 1 look like? I love making
Yeah.
players describe their failures. It's really fun.
Me too. I enjoy very much doing if you succeed or if you fail, what
Mhm.
occurs. Like you
Yeah.
tell me what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I like that.
And that's a bit of world building too. Um, so here's a new segment for the podcast. We've got our very first viewer topic.
Yes.
Clef12345 in the chat, our homie.
Hello, Clef.
Hello, welcome. Wants us to talk about monster making,
Yeah.
and
That could be an episode, but like I'm down to do it.
that can be an episode, but let's do, if we're gonna do a teaser for this episode, a trailer, if you would. You make a lot more monsters than I do, and by that I mean I've never made a monster, and you make a lot of monsters.
I make a lot of monsters.
So
I actually have a program. I found a program online that allows you to like type in the monster information, and then you can like generate a monster stat block that's already set up in the same like format that 5th edition uses. So
yeah.
it's nice.
Oh, it's 12435. Got you, Clef. All right.
The numbers at the end.
Yeah, I was looking very quickly, and so.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you, because you said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so
that's what it looked. That's what it looked like.
I have another website. I have notes open on my computer. Let me switch back over to the stream.
Yeah,
there we go. Oh yeah, it is 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, 5. There you go.
Yeah. Eric's better at reading than I am.
I'm like, if illiteracy were a scale from 1 to 10 and 1 is fully illiterate, I'm like a good 3. Like I can get by.
The joke that I make all the time is, since like in real life I'm a musician, I only ever learned my alphabet up to G sharp. So it's hard, and I only know how to count to 4. So like,
what about G dull?
Huh?
What about, you said G sharp? What about G dull?
No, that'd be G flat, bud.
I'm not a musician. If it's not, if it isn't already obvious.
Yeah. So talk to me about monsters.
Monster making. All right. I mean, so Clef, my friend, this is going to be really, really rough. Please come back when we do an actual episode on monster making, because I can like prep something and actually give you like real good information. Generally, when I'm making monsters, the first thing I do is just pick a monster to base it off of. I find a monster that already has abilities that, and specifically abilities that I'm looking for, because the flavor of the monster I can change completely. So,
right. Yeah.
If I'm making an aerial creature that I want to be able to like throw bombs or whatever, you could use a kobold, alchemist, or really anything that has already the ability to like hurl a bomb or whatever. And then just pop a fly speed on it, and you're good.
Put wings on that boy.
Exactly. It's the easiest thing in the world. Especially if you're doing it quickly, or if you just like realize you need a monster suddenly for this encounter. The easiest thing in the world is take a monster that already exists and just describe it differently. The players never see the actual stat block, so it could be anything sitting there. You could be physically running off of a goblin and just saying it's something else, because you just need those abilities. All you need are those physical numbers.
Right.
It gets a little trickier for me if I'm building characters or monsters with unique abilities.
Like bosses or mini bosses.
Right, like bosses, mini bosses, or for me, because my campaign has the early parts of it have it's going to be heavily goblin, because I feel like goblins are a great way to start any campaign, honestly. Sure. Such a classic.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was saying because I just said goblins. Because I'm focusing so much on goblins, I create specialty abilities for various types of goblins. So if you've
Yeah.
got like a forest goblin, they might have the ability to hide within brush and whatnot, like a wood elf. I would give them that wood elf ability that allows them to like bonus action hide, I think it is, or something like that.
Yeah,
While they're obscured by like shrubbery.
right.
Or
Yeah, because goblins already have nimble escape, so you could just
they already
turn
have nimble
you
escape.
you could just turn nimble escape into the rogue cunning action. I've totally done that before.
Oh, I keep the nimble escape and then I just add on to it that they also, while within like the area of shrubbery, might automatically get like cover, something like that. Like
Right.
any little thing. But then like all goblins have that nimble escape. So it's that
Right.
one connecting value that you're used to, but it's got like that little extra.
Yeah.
Or like mountain goblins, if you're fighting goblins in the mountain, I give them really good climb speeds. And then I
Sure.
make sure that the field that you're on have like rock formations that they
there's
can just
verticality
scamper
to
up.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or
Um,
give them like a nerfed version of like boulder toss from like giants or something
right,
like
from
that.
giants, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just make it like it's mechanically the short bow, because goblins usually have the short bow, but instead of being a short bow, they're just hurling rocks. But it does the same
they're hurling
damage
rocks.
and everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easiest way.
I've
to...
done that. I guess I have done that kind of monster making before.
Oh yeah. So it's just, I mean, it's monster making or reskinning or whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, it's it's kind of like, because I come from a theater background, I think about a lot of things in theater sense. It's the same thing as putting on a play. The stage itself looks incredible. The setting is perfect. Everything is good. The minute you walk through one of those doors, the house stops.
Right.
Like the minute you get backstage, there's nothing else. And that's kind of what you're doing for your players. They just see the stage. So you just need to make sure that the front of the stage is set nicely. Whatever's going on backstage, you have full control over, and you can keep as organized or as disorganized as you need to run the game. But as long as they're fighting the right stage, then, or fighting the right couch on the stage, I guess would be the right way to say it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think of things like, and I GM things like very cinematically. So
Yeah.
I feel similarly where like, and like, even in our Blades game where like I talk about like camera movements and cinematography in our games.
It's good that you do that though. I really enjoy that, especially when it comes to trying to explain GMing from that standpoint, using terminology like theater or cinema explains that, you know, from what the players are seeing, all of this is happening. But like even with like a movie, right outside of the camera angle is like a dude standing there in like pajamas holding a sound stick. Like you just can't see him.
Yeah, totally. And like my favorite kind of like, one of my favorite kind of like player moments that I have is when I'm like running a game in that way, and like suddenly my like one of my players like starts thinking about what their character is doing like in director stance, and I'm just like, yes, it's working. It's happening. Like,
yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my first thing. As far as like making a monster is concerned, just reskin if you can. Or if you're starting out with making monsters, that's what I would recommend. Take something that already exists, reskin it, add an ability or two to it. Any change that you make is any change that you make to a monster is going to might alter its CR, but or its challenge rating, which
we could do a whole episode about CR and why it's bullshit.
I was going to say, the CR, which is theoretically the challenge rating appropriate to your party level.
We could talk about how CR just like level like 5+ CR
it's
just
like
doesn't fucking mean anything anymore. Yeah.
CR is like your suggested serving size of like Thin Mint. Like, they're like, you should have 2, but we both know that's not real.
We both know we're eating the whole damn sleeve of Thin
We
Mints.
both know your serving suggestion size is a nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we could totally do an entire episode on CR, right? Because the CR system is.
I have a monster building thing that I've thought of that I can talk about.
Go for it.
My advice as far as like building monsters, and we talked about this in episode 1 a little bit. Don't be afraid to change monsters on the fly. Like if you throw a monster at your players and you feel that it's either like too weak or way too strong, don't be afraid to just like change that, because like Eric was saying, like they don't see the stat blocks, they don't see backstage of the production.
Right.
If your players are fighting like an earth elemental, for instance, which is the example that I use because it's happened to me multiple times, and its slam attack does 2d10, and you use the slam attack for the first time, and it like dumpsters your player's tank,
cripples your
like
tank.
your paladin like takes half his health from it, then just like the next time it attacks, just make it do 1d10. That's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, lower its AC by 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. Make it easier to hit so it doesn't survive as long. Make it so that, like, maybe you want the attack to be, like, very impactful. Maybe you want the Earth Elemental Slam attack to dumpster their tank, because, like, that is terrifying. I've been in that position as a player. Like, when your GM, like, throws a monster at you and it, like, is like, all right, I'm gonna attack the paladin. You're like, all right, cool, no problem. Like, paladin, like, easy, like, big high AC, like a ton of health, and it's just like, oh, like 28 to hit, and it takes like a quarter of his health, and you're just like, fuck. And then like the GM's like, okay, I'm gonna roll for the second attack now, and you're like, oh Jesus. But then like,
I'm sorry.
but then that monster only lasts for like 2 rounds, so it gets these like really big, impactful, terrifying hits in, but then it dies, and you're just and then you have that moment of like, oh shit.
We could do a session. Well, probably not an entire episode on. I call them my.
You're cut out there.
Oh no. So I call them atomic minions. Effectively, they have like a handful of hit points, but they deal out crap tons of damage. Yeah. So like they're designed specifically to be just terrifying. Right. And I intermix them. Like some creatures won't be those, but like then like one of them will be, and it'll just be like they won't look different, but it'll just start dealing crap tons of damage.
Yeah, totally. I mean that can go in our monster building episode or whatever.
Oh yeah, or we could do an entire episode on, because that is more or less like encounter strategy. We could do an entire episode on like how to strategize.
Dude, I feel like you and I could sit here and talk about encounter strategy and tactics like literally for like 3 episodes.
It would be like a continuation of episode.
Yeah.
Stop. We would just continue.
Right. And then oh man, so that week we're just like live producing our podcast right now. We do an episode about combat tactics, and then our like supplementary episode the next week is we just play encounters against each other.
We just play encounters.
Like that one shot that we talked about where we we go to Kobold Fight Club. And we go, like, you generate a random deadly encounter, and we put that on the board. And I generate a random deadly encounter, and we put that on the board. And then we just play against each other and see what happens.
Perfect.
Yeah. I feel like you would crush me, but I don't know. Well,
possibly.
It depends.
It would depend. But that's why I like to play. That's why I play a lot of spellcasters. I like to stand in the back with no hit points to speak of.
Right.
but still be a massive threat to the battlefield as a whole.
Oh yeah, totally. I've totally had like spellcasters in my games where like they cast Fireball, and the players are like, "Holy shit, that guy knows Fireball." What the players don't know is that he's only got 1 Fireball.
Yeah, he's only got 1 Fireball. Or it's like what I'll do is I'll put, and I've only done this once because it is a particularly mean thing, but. Without too much backstory, our game we vote at the end of our game as like a fun thing for who we feel was the MVP and who we feel did the best role playing of the night. And again, it's all fun. The points don't really go anywhere. You can accumulate points and use them for whatever you want, kind of, and you work with the GM to decide what you want to use points for. It's just a way for the players to have a little bit more fun.
Oh, okay. That's how Blades in the Dark does experience, literally. So.
That's how Blades in the Dark does its experience. Yeah. So which I very much enjoy. I very much enjoy the idea that players are, as a party, coming together to decide, like, this went really well, this, whatever. I decided when I started, and the group that I joined has been doing that before I came along. When I joined the group and took over as GM, they were already doing that, so I maintained it. But then one night I got a vote for me, and I didn't know what that meant as the dungeon master or as the game master. I didn't know what a vote for me meant.
Mm.
So I decided I was able to use it to make like really interesting encounters. And an interesting encounter for me is apparently a very difficult encounter for the party.
Sure. Yeah.
Where
That
I
makes
did
sense.
things like I had an archmage or a mage on the field. They were lower level, but there was a mage on the field, and then I had like a commoner on the other side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And the commoner was throwing fireballs because he had a necklace of fireballs. So he looked like he was the bigger threat. So the party focused all, and he had like people defending him. So the party focused all their attention just ripping through and getting to him to find out that he had like 5 hit points.
Right.
And then like
this commoner's just chucking fireballs.
The actual threat is the mage on the other side of the field, who's now like, you guys are across the field from him, and he's like, oh, guess how many fireballs I have.
Right.
Whee! Like,
I've got 2d6 fireballs. Like,
I've got a lot of fire.
However you like. Yeah, totally. That's fun. Yeah.
But so encounter strategy, we could do an entire.
Yeah, encounter design. That's an episode.
Encounter design, yes.
Because like I could talk a lot about designing encounters, because I feel like when I design encounters, even when I design encounters in D&D, I'm just low-key designing Blades in the Dark encounters.
Right.
So, like...
Just low-key, just real nonchalantly.
Yeah.
And then... that. And then I had one more thing for monster making. Yeah. Just because the minute I heard that, like, all of the ideas came pouring down.
You've spawned an episode within an episode, Clef. I hope you're happy.
yeah, Clef, you've created basically podcast inception. Like, my only other thing, we talked about changing it on the fly and reskinning, and I think the last thing that I have for monster making, and again, we should do an entire episode on this where I could actually like polish, and we could both provide polished ideas. The last thing I can just
ask you questions.
No. Because if you change monsters on the fly, you already have all the mechanics for building the monster from scratch, basically. Totally. Yeah. You just do you do both. You basically do reskinning a creature as well as altering some of its abilities as though it were on the fly. Mm-hmm. You would take the way that I create my unique basically like from scratch is I take a base creature. I always start with a base creature that has abilities as close as I want, and then I just find abilities on other monsters that are around the same level, and just take those abilities and put them on my monster. And for every ability that I add to my monster, if I want to keep it in the same CR,
yeah, I was gonna say,
then I'll like remove an ability from the monster. I don't think too hard on that though, because again, if you've GM'd before, or if you're starting out DMing, I can guarantee you, for the most part, you're not going to use every ability a monster has. Your monster might get like 2 or 3 of its abilities out, and then like it gets killed, or it only has like 1 ability that's useful at the time. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Or you do what I do, which is you make the monsters, you give it the abilities, you do the encounter, and then the encounter finishes, and the players kill all the monsters, and you realize you forgot to use the cool ability, and you just made them like run up and attack, like and it's like, well, shit. I've done that before with like methods, like Steam methods, and they're supposed to like blow up when they die, and like ran the whole encounter and just went like, oh, all of these were supposed to blow up, and the players were all kind of like crowding around them. Oops. Yikes.
Remember the abilities. That's another important
remembering abilities is an important.
When I build them. Good.
No, just playing the game is a good thing to remember to do.
Yes. Just generally doing what the does.
But it's a lot. It's a lot, right? We could do. Here's another episode idea. Just like juggling all of this shit in your head and keeping it in your head, and like.
Oh yeah, that's and that could right down into like DM tools. We could do an entire episode of DM tools.
Yeah. Well, so here's the question though: would an episode about GM tools just turn into us debating about fudging dice rolls again? Because that was our first episode.
No, I think again, while I do stand by fudging dice rolls is just another tool at the disposal of the DM, I think that should be one of the last tools that you come to after. after exhausting all of
All
the
the
other
other
tools
ones. Yeah.
available to you.
Yeah. Man,
Um,
Clef is a viewer after our own heart. Their campaign has no CR. Hell yeah, dude.
I
Crushing
mean,
it.
yes, yes. CR is an illusion at best. And to
Welcome to the
actively
CR
acknowledge that
episode.
the CR is not real is the enlightened way to do it.
It's the Galaxy Brain meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yes,
Totally.
well, we could do an entire episode on various DM tools, and not just tools for
Yeah.
progressing the game, but also one of my players in a prior game of mine brought this to my attention. I don't know where he found it. I think he found it on Critical Role, but I'm not 100% sure. You know those plastic like milk carton rings,
Yeah.
like that come from the top that you
Yeah.
take off the milk, and then you have that plastic like white or
Yeah.
red or whatever ring.
Mm-hmm. Using that
he
for
made
concentration effects and stuff. Yeah.
concentration, poison, sleep, any kind of like
Yep.
effect that took on somebody. I have a baggie full of different colored ones, and he made me like a little cute, like a little note card with like
Yeah.
the color references. It was really nice.
That was a critical, or that is a like
It is.
I mean it was
Matt
probably from other things, but like Matt Mercer started using those in campaign 1. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay,
because Critical Role is like 7 or 8 players, and so like
yeah.
everyone having to remember like concentration and hex and all these different things is just a lot.
Yeah, that's true. But it was pretty nice.
Yeah,
it was
totally.
pretty.
Yeah, like my favorite, so like one of my other favorite things that I've seen in a campaign recently is in Matt Koval's campaign. For initiative, he writes everyone's initiative on like individual post-it notes and then folds them and hangs them on the GM screen so you can see the turn order.
I've seen that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
I do. I don't remember where I saw it. I think I saw it on somebody's podcast. I don't remember which one. I do something. It's called like the initiative square or something. Let me see if I don't have a pen to show you. So basically, I draw like this outline that looks kind of like this. Like it's like a house that's not finished.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that? Can you make out? Okay.
Yeah.
And then like that. This is basically me at the table, and then these are all
right.
And whatever their initiatives are, I write them down like this. And then my monsters, I write down their initiative in the middle. So it'd be like 3, 7, 20 or whatever. And then you just look at the numbers and you're like,
Yeah, it's like you're waiting a table. Like
I also came from the world of food service, so
right.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. But like that's the thing, like take what you know and put it in the game.
And that's the big thing.
We talked about that. World building, we've brought it back. We've come full circle.
And you know what? That's the ultimate goal in life. Come full. Use what you know and create your world from that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like we did teaser mini episodes for all of our future topics.
I was gonna say, I think we got the point of today's episode across.
I think so.
And then we have a ton of ideas for later.
For more stuff. Yeah.
And then I posted the first episode to Reddit. I'll post the second episode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make like TLDRs, like too long didn't read, but it's going to be like too long didn't watch. And I'll just be like, here's what we discussed. Like,
right. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, this will be up on YouTube tomorrow. I think. So I'll definitely link that, and I'll start fucking around with trying to get like the audio only rips and like getting those to sound cool and good the way that I like to, because I come from a lineage of audio engineering. So
right now you're bringing dishonor upon your family. No.
That's a mood. But yeah, so Clef, thanks for tuning in. We do this every other Sunday.
Yes.
Do you want to just like say that we do this at 9 a.m.? Does that just work?
That works for me.
So for like the past like 3 times we've gone to do this, we've been like, oh, let's do it at 12, and then we wake up early and message each other and go like, you want to do it early? And we always end up doing it early. Do you want to just say like, let's do this at every other Sunday at 9 a.m.?
Perfect.
Okay. So every other Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern, on this channel, you can watch us live. On Mondays, you can watch it on YouTube because it'll go up on YouTube. And eventually, it'll be in podcast form. You could RSS feed us straight into your podcasting apps everywhere. And then
torment yourself with the sound of our voices on your drives to work.
Listening to us talk about nerd shit because that's what we do here. We also run 2 different campaigns on this channel. We run a Blades in the Dark campaign on Monday nights at 8 a.m. Eastern, which Eric is in. You can watch Eric do the actual playing and me do the actual GMing. And then on Thursdays I run a D&D game, again Thursday at 8 p.m. EST. I think I said 8 a.m. for Blades. It's 8 p.m.
It's 8 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not waking up at 8 a.m.
Yeah, no. So
we are not to play Blades.
So we'll be live those times. I stream Magic and other bullshit in the meantime and talk about role-playing games while I play Magic. Yeah, any final thoughts?
I don't. Everything I've got.
We need to come up with a cool sign-off because, like, you know how podcasts always have cool sign-offs?
Yeah, we do.
We need some catchphrases.
Should be something about like coffee, like go get a refill.
Yeah, it's time for a refill.
We'll see you when it's time for a refill.
Yeah,
I love it.
Something
we'll come
like
up
that. Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll workshop it, or we'll just awkwardly talk about how we're gonna workshop it, and that'll be our thing.
At the end of every episode, we'll awkwardly come up with different phrases, and then just like.
And I'll just awkwardly end the episode randomly, at some point.
Perfect.
But for now, we'll sign off. We'll say goodbye to our good friend Clef and the rest of the internet. And
goodbye, Clef. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Goodbye to the internet. Thank you for maybe joining us.
Bye, internet. See you next time.